In the small town of York, Pennsylvania, 19-year-old Erica Miller disappeared. It seemed as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The police had no leads whatsoever. No one knew where she was and why no one had heard from her. The case was at a standstill until the Miller couple made a terrifying discovery on their farm. In the quiet town of York, Pennsylvania, most residents relaxed after work. The mother of the 19-year-old, however, had a hard time. Emergency services understood. We are on our way to the crime scene. Brenda Miller went to the York police and filed a missing person report for her daughter. Nothing had been heard from 19-year-old Erica for 48 hours. Brenda, a single mother, lived with a roommate named Manuel. Together in the evenings, Erica sat on the couch and watched TV. It was all as usual. Brenda went to bed, and Manuel apparently didn't go to bed for a while. He went into the kitchen to get something to eat and then also went to bed. When Brenda woke up and got ready for work, she found that her daughter was not at home. Erica had taken neither her handbag nor her cigarettes with her. The mother knew that her daughter would not have left the house without these items. Brenda then called someone and went to work. When she returned, she, however, found that her daughter was still missing, and her cigarettes, her lighter, and her handbag were in the same place. The woman began to worry. She had overheard her daughter's phone call before she went to bed and remembered that Erica had said something like, "Will you still be there?" Brenda understood if Erica were to be away for a few days, she would definitely let her know. She didn't work and lived with her mother. Where could she have gone? The police found no signs of forced entry at the scene or a struggle. The only thing Erica had taken with her was her long green dress that she always wore. All this indicated that Erica left the house voluntarily. What if she didn't want to be found at that time? Some people thought that Erica had spontaneously gone away for a while. Maybe she wanted to travel or simply make a change of scenery. That sounded just like Erica. She was a typical teenager who drifted around looking for her place in life. Her brother, Chuck, decided to go there and Erica followed him, but she soon realized that the army was not her way, and so she left the service and returned to her mother. Brenda's intuition told her that something was wrong. She knew from her gut that something was wrong, and she was sure that Erica was in trouble. On January 20, 1995, another day passed, but she still hadn't heard from Erica. The investigators began to find out who had last seen her. Initially, everyone who had been in contact with her in the last hours before her disappearance was suspected. The police had to rule out that they were involved in the case. Based on the phone records, the investigators found out which of Erica's friends she had last spoken to. Her close friend was Janie. They called each other every day to chat. This evening was no exception. Brenda remembered that Erica had said something on the phone like, "Will you still be there?" Jenny, however, had no plans to see her friend that evening, and Erica had not mentioned any plans for the evening. If Brenda hadn't heard that, it meant that Erica had chatted with someone else after talking to Jenny, but with whom? The police turned again to Erica's inner circle. Suspicion fell on the person who had last seen Erica. It was Manuel, a close acquaintance of the missing person who had seen her before her disappearance. It was clear to him that the investigators were interested in him. Manuel stated that he had gone to bed shortly after Brenda, who claimed to have spent the night beside her. Manuel did his best to prove that he was not involved. The west side of York is considered a very quiet neighborhood. Here, many families live in houses that have common walls. That is a good place for families with children. The houses are close together and the neighbors are friendly and quite close-knit. Exactly in this neighborhood, flyers about Erica's disappearance hung on telephone poles and in the local store. Of course, people began to discuss it and put forward their own theories. When something like this happens, everyone talks about it. Activists of the Citizens Association of the neighborhood residents questioned all the neighbors whether they had seen strange cars or strangers near their houses, yet no one noticed anything suspicious. The residents had many questions. What if Erica ran away, left voluntarily, or went somewhere with a friend? All residents of York speculated. Erica's brother, Chuck, tried to support his mother. He tried to direct the conversation to other topics and simply asked the woman not to worry. Brenda did everything possible and impossible to find Erica. She and other relatives called hospitals and combed the streets of York, one after another. Brenda was suspicious of everyone. She believed that anyone who had spent even a moment alone with her could have something to do with her daughter's disappearance. Perhaps it was the fear of the unknown and uncertainty that made her paranoid. The general excitement grew, but one person remained calm, Chuck. No one wondered why he wasn't particularly concerned about his sister's fate or tried to find out where she was or why she wasn't in contact with anyone, but Chuck knew what was going on. Erica was not disappeared. Pennsylvania, January 1995. Nothing had been heard from 19-year-old Erica Miller for a week. Her picture was scattered all over the city while the police and her mother eagerly searched for her. Her older brother Chuck kept the secret to himself. A few days, maybe a week, before her disappearance, her sister told him that she had found a job that paid $15 an hour. In the 90s, that was considered a good salary. The thing was that a friend of Erica, who knew about her interest in the military, had offered her a top-secret assignment. It was a kind of witness protection program. One had to guard a woman who might be in danger. It was presented as a secret mission, and Erica made her brother promise not to tell anyone, not even her mother. She didn't want Brenda to worry. Chuck was the only son her sister could trust. Erica said it would take a few days, maybe a week, and asked him not to worry. February 1995. 2 weeks had passed since Erica's disappearance, and the police received their first calls from informants. The many tips and speculations shocked everyone who had been following the situation, especially Brenda. When someone disappears, many versions of what happened immediately come to mind, and the first thing you think about is whether you can do anything to help. People assume all sorts of things, e.g., that Erica was with a hunter and decided to run away with him and live in the country. A witness said that on the day Erica disappeared, he heard a man and a woman arguing near her house. She was allegedly seen here and there, sometimes with one, sometimes with another person. The police had to check all these versions. They were given different addresses and advised to question different people. All these tips were rather gossip. The officers refuted them as quickly as they appeared. It was as if the steam from your mouth in cold weather vanished into thin air. So it was with this investigation. The officers got a tip that seemed sensible to them, but only for a short time. It was difficult to process this whole flow of information. The police officers tried to decide in advance whether the next lead could be helpful for the investigation, and if they concluded that this was not the case, they moved on to the next lead. Then, someone told the police that Erica was having an affair with the father of one of her friends. The man's name was Earl. The most important thing about this report, however, was that he had apparently disappeared around the same time as Erica. In this flood of information, the police were primarily interested in this older man. Almost everyone put forward their own version of the story, and some people began to look for Earl. They suspected that he was in some kind of relationship with Erica. When a tip comes in and you believe it to be true, you start to convince yourself that this was the case. However, it turned out that Earl had nothing to do with Erica's disappearance. A few days later, no one believed anymore that Erica had run away because she had taken nothing with her. She had no savings. At this point, it was clear to everyone following the situation that Erica was in trouble. Everyone wondered, could she still be saved, or was it already too late? Erica's friends also exchanged their opinions and tried to understand what had happened and who was behind it. The police officers, for their part, had to follow every lead. They had worked in many directions in the investigation of Erica Miller's case, but they had come to no conclusion. It seemed as if she had simply vanished into thin air. The police and her mother had to navigate a fog of rumors and speculations. The 3 weeks had passed since Erica's disappearance. Brenda suspected everyone. She no longer trusted even the closest people, doubted their sincerity. This also included her roommate, Manuel, who, according to the police, was the last person to see Erica alive. Manuel didn't seem to take it badly, wasn't as worried as everyone else. It was as if he thought he should mind his own business and not put bad things in his head. Manuel decided to stay out of it, but an old family friend named Bill came to Brenda's aid. Bill and Brenda dated for a while, but then decided to break up and remained friends. He helped her distribute flyers and search for Erica. The man was always there for her. Brenda was very annoyed when another tip led to nothing, and Bill helped her not to lose hope. The first suspect in this case was Manuel, but this version was dismissed almost immediately. The investigators found out that he had nothing to do with Erica's disappearance. Many people couldn't understand how something like this was even possible. How could the young woman just disappear? 6 weeks after Erica's disappearance, the York police received a call. Investigator Ekin Road traveled to a farm outside the city. He still can't forget what he saw on the day of his arrival. The crime scene had already been cordoned off. The man immediately smelled the scent of death. According to the investigator, he realized what had happened even before he saw it with his own eyes. In a fairly neatly dug grave lay human remains. The victim was barely clothed, wearing only socks, and his head was covered by a kind of green coat. According to Brenda Miller's description, the coat belonged to her daughter. The medical examiners soon confirmed that it was indeed the body of 19-year-old Erica. When Brenda Miller finally learned what had happened to Erica and found out the details, she literally felt sick. The woman lacked the words to describe what she felt. It's the kind of tragedy you don't want to talk about. Erica's brother, Chuck, was at the Marine base when he learned of his sister's death. Chuck immediately thought of the job his sister had taken and realized that someone had taken advantage of her trust. He told his mother the secret that Erica had entrusted to him and which she had asked him not to reveal under any circumstances. This shocked Brenda, but she wasn't angry with her son. When he thinks back now, Chuck doesn't understand how anyone could believe such a thing, why he didn't question it, why he didn't suspect that something was wrong. Imagine how Erica must have felt in that moment, betrayed, cheated. But this terrible discovery helped us find out what exactly happened to Erica. She was shot twice in the back of the head with a 12-gauge shotgun. Her mouth was covered with duct tape. The investigators found a 12-gauge shell casing in the pit. The mystery was not yet solved, but it was clear where Erica was and what had happened to her. It remained to be seen who had done it and why. Normally, it turns out that the perpetrator is someone the victim knows. The investigators suspected everyone Erica knew: the mother's friends, ex-boyfriends, classmates, colleagues. Any of them could be behind her death for some unknown reason, but who exactly was capable of such a thing? Investigator Ekin Road spoke with the owners of the farm where the body was found. At first glance, the couple had nothing to do with the victim. Tom March and Chury Smith only came under suspicion because they lived on the property where the body was found. During the search of their house, the police found a shotgun and 12-gauge cartridges. The body was buried on the property of the two. In the victim's grave, a shell casing was found with exactly the same cartridges that were found in the bag in the homeowner's refrigerator. What conclusions would a normal, sane person draw from this? The couple was questioned immediately, and according to Chury, a friend of Tom's had asked in January to bury secret documents on their property. It turned out that the man had a friend nicknamed Animal, whom they had known for years. He often came to them, always carried a gun, and looked like a soldier. He was involved in prisoner exchanges, spied on people, and was also a bounty hunter. Chury and Tom had heard nothing bad about him. They had been in contact with him for several years, had seen him show up in court, always with a gun. Churi knew nothing more about him. He didn't seem suspicious to her because he was Tom's friend, and that's how he had behaved from day one. One day in January, he wanted to bury a box of documents about his work on Tom's and Churi's property. He said that this way he could save money on insurance, yet over time, Churi found the man and his demands increasingly suspicious. One day, she went to the store and saw a picture of Erica Miller on a sheet stating when she had disappeared. According to Churi, she unconsciously felt some kind of connection to her. Churi stated that she asked Tom that same evening to dig up these boxes. She waited until he came home from work. By that time, it was already dark, but they found the spot anyway. The hole turned out to be small, and as soon as Tom started digging, Churi saw a human hand. The woman quickly returned home and immediately called the police. Afterwards, she asked Tom if he had anything to do with the murder. After the discovery of Erica Miller's body, the missing person case was turned into a murder case, and the owners of the farm, Churi Smith and Tom March, had to answer many questions. At this point, the investigators had very little information. Primarily, they wanted to find out if these people were telling the truth and if their statements were logical. According to Churi, it all started with a strange request from Tom's friend. She realized that the request was very unusual, but decided that Tom could take care of it himself. Tom, for his part, hadn't expected to find anything like that. He was sure that there was just an ordinary box of papers there and not a woman's body, but they eventually found a body. The investigators immediately believed that Churi had suspected nothing, but at the same time, there was a possibility that Tom was hiding something. The investigators believed that Churi was not involved in the murder, but her husband, Tom, had fallen under suspicion. Forensics confirmed that the shell casing found near Erica's body matched his shotgun. For the investigators, there were two possibilities. Either these people were lying and were nevertheless involved in the murder, or someone they considered a friend had set them up. To get to the truth, the investigators scrutinized Tom's story about his buddy. He knew him by the nickname Animal because he really resembled a large animal, about 1.90 m tall and 90 kg heavy. Supposedly, he had his own armed group that dealt with tracking down criminals with badges, protective vests, handcuffs, and other equipment. He seemed a little strange to Tom, but that didn't bother him much. They grew closer and eventually became good friends, went hunting, and often spent time together. One day, Animal asked Tom to accompany him in his car. He had to observe a house to find a man. Tom agreed, and each of the two men drove in his own car to watch the house. It took them about 2.5 hours. Tom still doesn't know exactly what Animal needed, a person or information. It turned out that the man repeatedly involved acquaintances and asked them to help find this or that person. This had been going on for 5 years. Tom thought it was his job and tacitly agreed to get in his car and track down the house. According to Tom, Animal had approached him with a request 6 weeks earlier. The man had asked him to lend him a shotgun for hunting. Tom had no problem agreeing, but warned him that there wasn't much ammunition left and asked him to return it when he was done with it. They never spoke about the subject again, but that wasn't all. In mid-January, Animal asked to bury a box of papers on Tom's farm, and Tom didn't think much of it. They had been in contact for several years, and Tom knew that what he said had to be taken either skeptically or seriously. At that moment, none of it seemed suspicious to him. Tom's story would have seemed strange to anyone because, first of all, one had to believe that the man worked as a private security guard when he walked around with a gun, an ID, handcuffs, and a bulletproof vest. A reasonable person would not have believed that Tom March really harbored no suspicion or he was a complete idiot. But had Tom told the truth, it was important for him to prove that he did. The man was tested with a lie detector for about 2.5 hours. The investigators asked him endless questions, repeated them, and changed the wording. Tom did everything that was asked of him to prove to everyone that he had nothing to do with the murder. And he succeeded. Tom's conscience was clear. The man was guilty because he was too trusting, but he had not committed the crime. Tom agreed to help the investigators find the man he knew as Animal. The next day, he wanted to visit him at his workplace. The investigators found out the place and time of the meeting and sent 2 police officers there. A silver station wagon with a radio antenna and a marine bumper sticker pulled up at the agreed location. The suspect didn't get out but just parked and stared straight ahead. He didn't even ask why the police officer was pointing a gun at him. At that moment, investigator Ekin Road realized that he was dealing with a man who was completely different from the criminals he had encountered so far. The police had a variety of different data and assumptions that were all somehow connected, but had not yet formed a coherent picture. As soon as the suspect got out of the car, the investigators began to unravel the mystery of Erica's murder. It turned out to be James William Bagley, who was also known to his friends as Bill. When Chuck found this out, he realized that his sister had been deceived and murdered by a man he had known and respected for years. Imagine you know someone your whole life, and suddenly it turns out that he has been shamelessly lying to you the whole time. Forensics searched his car. They found traces of blood on the floor mat, a chain, and a roll of duct tape in the trunk. No one could believe that the murderer was a friend of the victim's family. Bill said he had been in the army and worked as a bodyguard. Brenda considered him a decent man, and Erica saw him as a mentor. The man got to know the victim's mother, became a family friend, and even helped hang up flyers for the one whose kidnapping he had carried out and ended it with a brutal murder. This was a shock for everyone in the neighborhood and in the city. Everyone wondered whom one could trust after something like this. Even good acquaintances became suspicious as a result. After Bagley was arrested, the investigator began his interrogation. He went into the interrogation room, sat down opposite the arrested man, and asked him if he knew what was going on. Bill replied that it was either about illegal substances or Erica Miller. The investigator knew that it wasn't the former, whereupon the man requested a lawyer. That was the end of the conversation. Investigator Rode had encountered many sinister people in his time with the police, but this man had a peculiar, vacant look, like a man who feels absolutely no remorse for his actions. You could see that Bill never confessed to Erica's murder. They had the impression that he felt very drawn to Erica. He decided to use his power and authority to do it. He broke up with Brenda Miller and found a way to be alone with her daughter by making her a tempting job offer. Investigator Ekin Road believed that Bill lured Erica out of the house and took her by force to Chury and Tom's farm. She was naked and was apparently sexually abused. According to the footprints found, he had killed her in the pit. The jury found James Bill Bagley, nicknamed Animal, guilty of the kidnapping and murder of Erica Miller. He was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Earl, Manuel, Tom, and Chury were cleared of all suspicion. Later, an interview with Erica's brother was recorded in which he showed pictures from the childhood of the two of them. One of them shows her as a teenager. He commented on the next picture as a happy time. The picture was taken a year before his sister's death and shows her and her mother at Christmas in their grandmother's house. Erica was no longer with them. For a while, he had the feeling that his whole life had gone down the drain and he couldn't recover from it. He didn't know how to deal with it, how to return to his old life after such a tragedy. When they found out it was James's work, the first thing they wanted to know was why. Apparently he was mentally ill, but they didn't want to make excuses for him. They even asked Bill directly, but he didn't want to tell us anything. They thought he was simply evil personified. Bill lived up to his nickname. He became an animal, a beast in human form. Thanks for watching and take care of yourself.